Let me tell you something most people never talk about, the kind of silence that doesn't sound peaceful but hollow. There are days when I wake up and it feels like I'm watching my own life from a distance. I see my hands pour the coffee, my lips curve into a polite smile, my voice say, "I'm fine." But it's all automatic, like a recording that keeps playing. The world moves, people laugh, the sun still rises, and yet everything feels muted. I'm not sad, I'm not happy. I'm just here, existing, functioning, but not really feeling. I didn't understand it at first. I thought maybe I was lazy, ungrateful, or broken. But psychologists call this emotional numbness a state where the mind quietly shuts down its emotional system after being overwhelmed for too long. According to research from the Journal of Affective Disorders 2020, chronic stress and emotional trauma can cause the brain's limbic system, especially the amygdala, to go offline as a survival mechanism. It's not that we stop feeling, it's that the body decides feeling isn't safe anymore. Over time, this protection becomes a prison. The same wall that shields you from pain also keeps out joy. You stop reacting to beauty, you stop being moved by music, and the laughter of others starts to sound like a language you've forgotten. It's not peace, it's quiet pain, disguised as control. And that's the cruelest part of it. We don't notice the moment we go numb. We just wake up one day realizing we've been performing life instead of living it. Maybe you've felt that too. The subtle signs that something inside you has gone silent. That's what I want to explore. The hidden psychology behind emotional numbness and the 7 quiet ways it reveals itself. I used to think numbness meant something was wrong with me, that maybe I had lost the ability to feel. But the truth is, numbness isn't the death of emotion. It's the mind's way of staying alive when feeling becomes too painful. Psychologically, it's called emotional dissociation, a form of emotional self-protection. When the nervous system senses that you've reached your emotional threshold, it activates survival mode. It doesn't ask for permission, it just shuts down the parts of you that hurt too much to handle. In neuroscience, this process is often linked to the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, and the prefrontal cortex, which regulates it. When we face ongoing stress, rejection, loss, or emotional neglect, these 2 systems fall out of balance. The amygdala stays overactivated, constantly signaling threat, while the prefrontal cortex eventually suppresses emotion altogether. A 2020 study in the Journal of Affective Disorders found that people exposed to long-term emotional overload show reduced activity in emotion-processing regions, like their brain literally learns to turn the volume down to survive. But emotional numbness doesn't just happen in the brain, it's a full-body shutdown. The autonomic nervous system, responsible for our fight, flight, or freeze responses, begins to favor the freeze state. Heart rate slows, breathing shallows, and energy collapses inward. You stop reacting, not because you don't care, but because your body no longer trusts that it's safe to feel. This is why numbness feels like emptiness. You're not broken, you're in protection mode. What's cruel is how silent it all is. You can function, laugh, even care for others, all while being emotionally offline. The world sees composure, but inside, there's static, no signal, no movement. Psychologist Bessel van der Kolk, author of The Body Keeps the Score, once wrote, "The body remembers what the mind forgets." That's exactly what happens here. The body holds the pain, the mind can no longer process, wrapping it in numbness to keep you going. And yet, this state isn't permanent. The brain is plastic, always changing, always capable of healing. Emotional numbness is not a flaw. It's evidence that your body once fought too hard to keep you safe. When it's ready, the same system that shut you down will begin to reopen. Slowly, carefully. like ice melting back into water. So when you feel nothing, remember that emptiness isn't your enemy. It's your nervous system whispering, "I'm still protecting you. I just need time to believe it's safe again." It never happens overnight. Emotional numbness slips in like twilight so slowly you don't notice when the light begins to fade. One day you wake up and realize you're still moving, still talking, still working, but something inside you has gone quiet. These are the 7 signs that your emotions have gone underground, not because you've stopped feeling, but because you've been feeling too much for too long. 1. You're living on autopilot. Your body moves, your mouth speaks, but it's all mechanical, like muscle memory of being human. You follow routines without passion or curiosity. You scroll, you nod, you say, "I'm fine." Inside, there's stillness, not peace, but absence. Psychologists call this derealization, a subtle detachment that protects the brain from overload. You don't choose it, it happens when life demands more emotion than your system can safely hold. 2. You no longer feel moved by beauty. Music, sunsets, laughter, they're all still there, but somehow they don't reach you anymore. It's like there's a thin layer of glass separating you from the world. You can see it, but you can't quite touch it. The beauty that once moved you now feels distant, muted, almost irrelevant. According to a 2018 study in Frontiers in Psychology, chronic stress can dull the emotional circuits in the amygdala, the brain's center for emotional processing, leading to a weakened reward response. In simple terms, your brain lowers the emotional volume to protect you from overload. It's not that beauty has lost its meaning, it's that your nervous system has gone into survival mode, choosing quiet over chaos. The sunsets haven't changed. The music hasn't lost its melody. It's your mind, exhausted from feeling too much, that has learned to turn down the sound of life just to keep you safe. 3. You can't connect deeply with others. You love people, you care, but it feels like your empathy has lagged. When someone cries, you understand it, but you don't feel it. Conversations feel rehearsed, even with people you trust. This isn't coldness, it's emotional fatigue. Studies on compassion burnout show that long-term caretakers and emotionally responsible people often lose emotional resonance first because their empathy has been stretched too thin. 4. Anger becomes your only emotion. You don't cry anymore, but you get irritated easily by noise, by small mistakes, by yourself. That's because anger is a secondary emotion. It covers softer ones like sadness or fear. When you suppress too much, the brain channels all that tension into the only feeling strong enough to break through. It's not rage against others. It's your system's desperate attempt to remind you that you're still alive. 5. You chase stimulation but feel nothing. You overwork, overthink, scroll endlessly, watch videos until your mind hums. You crave noise because silence feels unbearable. This is what psychiatrist Dr. Anna Lemke calls dopamine overstimulation. When the brain is flooded with constant digital or emotional input, its reward system burns out. Pleasure becomes harder to access. The more you seek to feel, the less you do. 6. Joy and sadness both feel muted. Good news feels like okay. Bad news feels like I expected that. There's no rise, no fall, just a flat line where emotions used to live. Psychologists call this emotional blunting, a state where the nervous system has stayed in freeze mode for too long. It's the body's way of pressing pause, not because it doesn't care, but because it no longer trusts that pressing play won't hurt. The heart stops reaching for joy because it has learned that joy can be followed by loss. The mind stops reacting to pain because it has been too loud for too long. What looks like apathy is really exhaustion, a system that's been running on survival for months, maybe years. You haven't lost your emotions. They've simply gone quiet, waiting for proof that it's finally safe to feel again. This isn't emptiness. It's the body's last attempt to protect what's left of you. 7. You've forgotten who you are beyond survival. This is the quietest sign and the hardest to face. You stop remembering what you love. You don't know what excites you anymore. You confuse rest with isolation, solitude with safety. Somewhere along the way, your identity was replaced by endurance. You became the version of yourself who doesn't break, even if it means not feeling at all. This is not weakness. It's what happens when strength is used as armor for too long. Each of these signs is a whisper from the same wound, a nervous system that learned to protect you by going silent. You may think you're broken, but what's really happened is that your body has built a wall so you could survive. The tragedy is not the numbness itself, it's forgetting that you can return. Because emotional numbness isn't the end of feeling, it's the pause before your return to life. And healing begins the moment you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is my pain trying to protect me from?" When you can ask that softly without judgment, that's the first sign you're beginning to thaw. No one tells you that numbness has a price. It doesn't come screaming like heartbreak or chaos. It arrives quietly, taking pieces of you without asking. At first, it feels like relief. You stop overreacting. You stop crying at night. You stop feeling the sharp edges of life. But slowly, you also stop feeling the warmth. The laughter becomes distant, the music flat, the colors dull. I used to think this was peace, that the quiet meant I was healing. But numbness isn't peace. It's grief wearing a calm face. Over time, you start disappearing from your own life. You still do what you're supposed to: work, talk, care, reply, but you're no longer there. People still see you, but what they see is your outline. You've become a projection of composure, a person who seems fine, because you've learned how to mimic fine. According to a 2021 review by Harvard Health Publishing, prolonged emotional suppression alters not only brain activity, but even stress hormones, causing the body to flatten emotional responses over time. You're not imagining the emptiness. Your body has turned survival into habit, and numbness changes how you love. You still care, but it's mechanical, a version of love stripped of aliveness. You hug, but don't feel warmth. You listen, but can't absorb their pain. You smile, not because you're happy, but because it's expected. Love becomes duty, not devotion. The tragedy is that no one notices. They see your calm as strength, not realizing it's really your exhaustion. Inside, you ache for connection, but can't seem to reach it, like trying to hold someone through glass. Then comes the quiet erosion of identity. You start forgetting what excites you, what calms you, what makes you laugh until you lose breath. You confuse stillness with safety and detachment with maturity. Psychologist Dr. Jonas Webb calls this the invisible wound of emotional neglect, when the survival skill of shutting down becomes the lens through which you see yourself. You start believing this emptiness is you. You mistake numbness for personality. What's cruel is that numbness convinces you that you're okay. You function, you show up, you perform, but deep down, something essential has gone missing. That spark that makes you feel alive. The cost of numbness isn't just the absence of sadness, it's the absence of meaning. You stop chasing joy because joy feels foreign. You stop reaching for people because closeness feels unsafe. You settle into a life that's manageable but not alive, one that looks peaceful but tastes hollow. But there's something the numbness can't erase: your capacity to come back. The brain is plastic, the heart resilient. What has gone quiet can be reawakened. Healing doesn't mean forcing emotion. It means rebuilding trust with your own nervous system, showing it, moment by moment, that feeling is safe again. Because numbness isn't the end of feeling, it's the pause before the return. The cost is heavy, yes, but it's also proof that you once cared deeply enough for your mind to protect you, and now it's finally time to teach it that you've survived. For a long time, I thought healing meant fixing myself, that one day I'd wake up and the switch would flip and suddenly I'd feel everything again. But healing doesn't arrive as a lightning strike. It comes like dawn, slow, hesitant, often unnoticed. The first step isn't about chasing emotion. It's about creating safety for emotion to return. Because numbness never meant I stopped feeling. It meant my body didn't trust that it was safe to feel. So I started small. I stopped trying to force joy and began noticing presence. The warmth of sunlight on my face, the rhythm of my breath, the way water feels when it hits my hands in the morning. These tiny moments are what psychologists call sensory grounding, small sensory cues that teach your nervous system that you are here, you are safe, and you can soften. Over time, those sensations became bridges back to feeling, not floods, just quiet ripples reminding me that life was still moving inside me. Therapists often say, you don't feel again by thinking, you feel again by noticing. So I began noticing when I wanted to escape the instant urge to scroll, to work, to distract. Instead of running from it, I'd pause and ask, what am I avoiding right now? At first, there was only silence, but slowly words began to surface. Fear, loneliness, grief. And with them, something unexpected relief. Because even pain, when acknowledged gently, feels more alive than numbness ever did. And then came connection, the kind I had forgotten how to hold. I stopped pretending to be fine. I started saying, I don't know, I'm tired, I miss feeling alive. Those words were clumsy, vulnerable, but real. And in return, people didn't turn away. They leaned in. That's when I realized, healing doesn't begin when others understand you. It begins when you allow yourself to be seen as you are. Safety is built through honesty, not perfection. Psychologist Carl Rogers once said, when someone really hears you without judgment, it feels damn good. That's what starts to thaw, the freeze being heard without needing to be fixed. Emotional numbness dissolves not through pressure, but through gentle permission. Each time someone listens, each time you let yourself cry without apologizing, your nervous system learns something revolutionary. Feeling is not danger, it's connection. So if you're walking through life feeling nothing, don't rush to feel everything. Just begin to notice the small signs of aliveness, the breath that deepens, the tear that doesn't scare you, the laughter that surprises you. That's how emotion returns, not as a flood, but as a quiet homecoming. You don't get back to who you were before the numbness. You become someone softer, truer, more alive. Because healing isn't about finding your feelings again. It's about remembering that they never left. They were just waiting for it to be safe, to come home. There's a strange tenderness in realizing that numbness was never the enemy. It was the bridge that carried us through the storm. We often think survival and healing are two separate things, but sometimes they are the same heartbeat at different speeds. Survival is when the body says, not now. Healing is when it whispers, maybe now. The moment you begin to feel again, even if it's only confusion or fatigue, that's not regression, that's resurrection in disguise. The truth is, emotional numbness doesn't fade in one breakthrough moment. It unravels slowly like thawing ice. Each time we let someone in, each time we allow sadness without shame or joy without guilt, the ice melts a little. And that melting isn't weakness, it's evidence of strength returning. As trauma researcher Dr. Peter Levine wrote, the body is designed to heal, given the right conditions of safety and awareness. So maybe the real healing isn't about becoming happier, it's about becoming safe enough to be human again. When I started feeling again, it wasn't graceful. It was messy, disorienting, almost overwhelming. I cried at commercials, felt hollow the next day, and then caught myself smiling for no reason. That's the paradox of healing. The chaos means it's working. Because aliveness isn't linear. It pulses, it flickers, it trembles, but it moves. And movement is the proof of return. You begin to realize that the goal was never to fix yourself, but to befriend yourself, especially the parts that went numb to protect you. Those quiet versions of you, the ones that shut down to survive, they deserve your gentleness, not your judgment. Psychology calls this self-compassion, but maybe it's simpler than that. It's learning to sit with yourself and say, you did what you had to do, and now it's safe to rest. As you reconnect, the world starts to regain its texture. The wind feels softer. Music begins to stir something familiar in your chest. You start laughing without thinking about it. These moments might seem small, but they are sacred. They are proof that life is touching you again. Healing, in the end, is not about becoming new. It's about remembering you were never gone. So if you're here half alive, half asleep, wondering if you'll ever feel again, this is your reminder. You're already on your way back. Feeling numb doesn't mean you're broken. It means your mind once loved you enough to protect you. And now, your heart is learning to love you enough to let you live again. That's the quiet psychology of coming back to life. Not dramatic, not perfect, but profoundly human. And maybe that's where we'll end for now, in this quiet space between numbness and feeling, between surviving and living. If this story echoed something inside you, let it remind you that you're not alone in the silence. Share it with someone who might need to hear the same whisper, that healing is slow, but it's real. And when you're ready, stay there. Are more stories here waiting to help you feel human again.